So this is the parking lot that, in the making of the film The Professionals, covered this entire area. And when Burt Lancaster and Lee Marvin were looking down on the encampment, I think they were somewhere over here. All of this area was horse corral, where the bathrooms are. And over in this area was the corral. As well. They had a fence line coming across here. And over to this area. And tucked in right about there was where the tower was. God. So the first part of this White Dome Trail is rather sandy, obviously because thousands of people come through here and hike through here and mash down all of the sand. But this is the way to get down to the valley where the film The Professionals was made, with Lee Marvin, Burt Lancaster, Robert Ryan, and Woody Strode. And the femme fatale in this movie was Claudia Cardinale. Also, one of the other actors is well known as Jack Palance, who was also famous for his role in Shane and in the City Slickers movie with Billy Crystal. Well, the best thing to do is to get out here early in the morning before the crowds come, because by noon the parking lot would have been filled, and it will be hard to find a parking place, and then people will be all over the trail and you won't have any place to really stop and record and think, especially going through the Slot Canyon, where it becomes too narrow for people to pass.
You guys are doing it though. I was actually wondering how well you would do so. We're only 2 minutes behind, so not.
Now starts the descent. So this trail is obviously not for the physically challenged. Certainly a test for the gimbal. This is a Hohem gimbal with a DJI Osmo action camera. I guess we go this way. These natural steps that they built. And the flat part is just ahead. Just have to maneuver this area. And we can start to see the end here, where those stone ruins are, which in the movie was a burned out cantina where the group took shelter when they were in the canyon. Oh, this is much better. So in the movie, when Burt Lancaster first approached the ruins of the cantina, he came right through here. Obviously, his horse could not make it down that narrow path, so this was a little bit of Hollywood magic. So the way it was filmed, he started about right here and just sort of came across this sandy part and went right up to the area where those ruins are. Now, you see this pile of rocks over here? This was actually built up, that's why that's here, to look something like the main wall that remains. So he rode right through here between this wall, which was a wall at the time, it's fallen apart, and this wall. And in the movie, this wall had a lot of writing on it because the setting was the Mexican Revolutionary War. So there was some Viva Villa markings on the wall here, but they've taken all of that down. Those three beams you can definitely see in the movie, and that middle beam is where Burt Lancaster was rigging the last part of his dynamite charge. So he was sitting on top of the wall with his feet hanging over that middle beam, and he placed the last fuse for that. So this is where Burt Lancaster came out. That rock, that smooth rock in the middle, is clearly seen in many of the scenes that were taken when they were in this area. So now it all makes sense. The parking lot up there was Raza's camp, and this was their rendezvous point in the canyon. Now in one scene, Burt Lancaster had gone ahead, and Woody Strode and Lee Marvin climbed up these rocks here in order to find a position to rescue Burt Lancaster from hanging upside down. You can clearly see that in the movie where they scale these rocks. And then on top, in another scene, Lee Marvin was up there with binoculars, supposedly looking over the open desert, but indeed he was just sitting up there. And so the story goes, he was so drunk at one point in time that one of the director's helpers had to make sure he was okay up there and wouldn't fall down. And they said the other reason why they wanted to help him, because Burt Lancaster, who was a stickler for making movies, would have been very upset with him being up there and drunk and not doing what he was supposed to do. So this is all that remains of their little camp. This sign is well known to anybody who comes through. It shows the encampment up there in the parking lot. So the movie was released in 1966, so they were here in 1965. They were here in the winter, because if you'll notice in the movie, they have on coats at times. So this is Kalen Wash. And if you go to your left, you'll go down another smaller slot canyon that eventually leads back to the road. Annie Swan, in her book on hiking in Valley of Fire, said that's a good one to go if you have the time to visit there. Otherwise, most people just go into the slot canyon to the right. So another look back at where Burt Lancaster came across down and eventually into the slot canyon. There's the road or the hill that they climbed. And I believe I see the pillars that were shown in the end of the movie when Lancaster was wounded. He was further up that hill to the left, but they had those sort of dramatic looking 3 pillars. So that's where he was. It's amazing what they can do to make you think you're somewhere else. So he was further up behind a rock, and Jack Palance as Raza was further down. That arch is key because that shows up when Burt Lancaster is setting up the dynamite. Well, these are the pillars. But you'd have to get the view above, looking below, to see what Burt Lancaster saw. So moving on up the trail here. If they were further in, I guess these rocks weren't here then. These big boulders might have fallen actually since then. You can see that sort of bare-faced area up there. So that's probably fallen since 1965 and sort of blocked this part, because this part is still maneuverable by horse without these rocks here. This is the entrance to the slot canyon. So basically they filmed as far up in this canyon as that black wall ahead. Because after this part, it's too narrow for a horse to get through, so they couldn't do it. So Burt Lancaster, or his body double, shimmied up this wall to deposit the dynamite, and the explosion occurred right in this area here. And as you can see ahead, be difficult for my horse to get through here. The stirrups would hook up on the side here. Plus horses sometimes get claustrophobia. Oh, I know he couldn't make it through here. This is way too narrow for him. So they didn't do any filming up in this area. We're out of the Slot Canyon, and this is where the trail turns to the right. And you climb out of the canyon, and things will start opening up here pretty soon.
Trail. No, that way. Yeah, it's just like you up there so you can if you like want to say
So my knees made it up that hill. So the next thing along this trail to look for, in addition to the colors, is the Anteater Formation. And of course the beautiful colors. The yellows, pinks, and red, and purple. So red Aztec sandstone on this side, and then bleached Aztec sandstone on this side. A little bit of desert varnish on some of these, like over here. But just beautiful. Especially over there to the right. All sorts of colors. This is the Anteater. Then the other thing she mentions is that rock, that sort of whitish, yellowish rock formation ahead of us. But look at the valley all across here. It's just beautiful. When I last took this trail back in 2015, some little girl got up on the top of that rock here and started doing some kind of yoga pose. Look at this uncluttered view of the valley. Unbelievable. It took millions and millions, billions of years to put all this together. This was all part of the big sand dune period somewhere in late Jurassic, when things heated up and you had drifting mounds of sand that eventually solidified. And the red, of course, means there are iron deposits in those. And that's what gives it the red color. If you see the same Aztec sandstone and it's sort of whitish like over here, it means that the iron has been bleached out of that. So it appears the trail is now making that turn towards the right, and in a short period of time you'll be right at the road and picnic area again, right through there. So we finally get back to the parking lot. And like I said, it's really crowded now, pretty much bumper to bumper. So like I said, get here early and you won't have any problem. And the best thing to do is to park closer to the outlet of the trail, like here. And this is about where we started.